Lindsay from Painting with a Twist again. So for this painting and this demonstration, I'm going to show you all how to create various kinds of flowers. Now, you can easily change the kind of flower that you're painting by changing the direction of your brush stroke. So I'm just going to show you a few tricks here, show you a few different kinds of flowers. I have just a little ball jar painted on here, so I have a little vase or bouquet to paint for you. Now, for your flowers in general, it's a lot of fun if you don't mix your colors perfectly before you start painting. So what I'm going to do is just kind of dip back and forth between my magenta and my white here, and you can kind of see how nice and swirly that paint is, okay? So for the basic kind of 5-petal flower that we're used to, you see a lot of those in our little cherry blossom painting here. What you want to do is make sure you're pulling your brush stroke towards the center, okay? Now, if it's easier, you can actually make a little dot for wherever you want your little flower to be, and then you're going to pull your brush strokes towards that dot. And I want you to think about kind of moving around like hands of a clock, okay? So I'm going to do one here, keep moving, here, and then I got 2 on the other side, okay? Now, you can see by pulling inward and using a nice amount of paint, we have a nice round edge to those petals, okay? That's the other key. If you get a nice little blob of paint, that blob is actually gonna help you get those round edges. And you can see how pretty that is because I didn't mix the colors first. So I've got some really nice kind of streaky white and pink happening, and you really don't need to do much more to that flower after that, okay? Now, if you want a more pointy flower, put the same idea. Again, I'm gonna dip back and forth between my white and pink. Make a little dot for wherever you want your flower, and you can brush outward. Now when you do this, you just want to lift up the pressure of your brush. Okay, but you can kind of see, once again, just by changing the direction of that brush stroke, you get 2 different kinds of flowers. So if you want a rounded petal, you're going to brush inward to the center. If you want a pointy petal, you're going to brush outward from the center, okay? Now, some of our paintings, we have quite a variety of colors. So we usually are going to go from a darker color to a lighter color. Now I'm going to show you this kind of blossom as well as an easy way to kind of make some roses. Okay, so for this, what I'm going to do is actually just start with that magenta by itself. And I have kind of a blossom, we're going to kind of let it open up from the top. But I want the rounded edge to be at the top, so I'm going to brush downward, okay? So I'm going to paint this guy right up here, and I'm just going to start with a few little petals brushing downward. So you can kind of see, we're really just concerned with what the top looks like right now, okay? So those rounded edges. Now, as you work your way down, you can add a little more white to that, and you want to make sure you're layering on top of your previous color. So you can see, now we have a lighter pink. I'm going to grab a little more white, even lighter. Okay, and now with just white, I'm going to start going in. You can see we've got some really lovely, easy blossoms that way. But these are all downward brush strokes. Now I am kind of focusing them into the center here, so you could presumably add a little bottom to your flower. I'll show you how to do that as well later. But this way you get a really nice, easy fade from dark to light just by grabbing a little more paint each time. Now I didn't really mix it every time. I just add a little bit more white to my brush, and that's what you get, okay? Now another method that uses this same kind of shift from dark to light is a standard kind of rose petal kind of color. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, once again, I'm gonna grab some magenta. Now for a rose, you wanna kind of think about little comma shapes, little curves around the center. So once again, you might make a little dot for wherever you want your flower to start. And I am going to press and curve. You can kind of see how I'm moving around the center of a flower. So I know that might be a little harder to see, but you want to press and pull, okay? Oftentimes I see people make them really light like this. You want to press and pull. You can kind of see how much richer that's going to make that texture, okay? Now, just like we did with the other one, I'm just adding a little white to my brush, and I'm gonna use that to add some shading on the sides, just like that. And you can kind of bring it in a little bit, grab a little more, But again, it's like little comma shapes all kind of rotating around the center. Now the nice thing about this is if you lose some of that texture, you can always go back in with more highlights or more of your darker color, just so you can really kind of see your little rose however you want it to be. And these certainly can get as big as you want. So if you want to kind of start a little smaller, then you can work your way out, okay? Now over here, I'm gonna do kind of a simple tulip shape, which is very similar to this kind of brush stroke. We're just gonna brush upward. So once again, I've got my pink and white, and I'm gonna press and pull. Now I'm actually pressing pretty hard there, so we have a little kind of a fat petal. And then on the sides, once again, press and pull, press and pull. So you can see those all overlap one another, but we get a nice easy sort of tulip shape on top of that. So we wanna add more dimension, just grabbing a little bit more of that pink and white and brushing upward. Okay, so easy peasy, just like that. Now, you can also do some little blossoms. So let's say you just have some little buds. You can do something as simple as that. Just a little downward brush stroke. Okay, or maybe it's two little petals together. But it's a really nice way just to kind of add a little bit more interest to your bouquets. I'm gonna add a little bit of white to some of these. You can kind of see, just add a little highlight. We can get some easy dimension that way. Okay, so there are some basic flowers for you. Just have some fun with the colors. Don't be afraid to use lots of paint because it's really going to help with that kind of streaky look, okay? So what we're gonna do next, I'm gonna rinse off my brush and I'm gonna show you how to do a few different kinds of leaves, okay? So leaves can be all sorts of different shapes. We're gonna have some rounded leaves and pointed leaves today. I'm gonna show you how to do both of those. Once again, very, very similar to how you're making your petal shape, but you don't need to be afraid to use lots of paint. And don't be afraid to kind of mix your colors together, okay? So generally for your greens in your bouquets and things, you're going to not just use green by itself. You always want to add like maybe a little bit of yellow or a little bit of tan just to kind of get a natural color. And don't be afraid to, have some different greens all throughout. You can add some white, whatever you want. But I am just gonna kind of mix a nice amount of sort of a base green right here. And again, I've got lots of paint. You can see how I've got a nice blob of paint on there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna first start with pointy leaves, which are a little more common. Okay, I can actually even have an example here. I can show you. You can kind of see at the top of my little bunny painting, you can see we have some pointed leaves, just like that, okay? So these are kind of like a teardrop shape. You're gonna brush outward once again. And I like to do one side and then the other. Now, if you are painting a bouquet, it's kind of nice to start filling in some space like that. So what I'm gonna do, brush out and lift, okay? And I know that looks a little crazy at first, but then we're gonna do the other side. Out and then lift. So you can kind of see it's like a mirror image. Then all you need to do is fill it in and we have a little leaf, okay? I'm gonna show you that a couple more times. You can even do smaller ones by pressing and pulling, just like we did before. Maybe you have two together, press and pull, just like that. But again, the key is lots of paint, lots of paint. Okay, I'm gonna show you another pointed one. You wanna go around and out to a point, and then we're gonna do the mirror image, around and out to the point, and then you're just gonna fill in. Now when you fill in, try to go in that same direction of your leaf. You're gonna go straight up and down. You don't wanna fill in side to side like that because that's not how leaves grow, okay? So think about how that texture on your leaf would naturally appear, okay? So again, these don't need to be perfect. I have some pretty ones here, but I'm gonna show you kind of a raggedy one up here. Maybe we have one that has a little bit of a squiggle. Maybe it's a little wilted like that. But the same idea, you just wanna taper to a point and it's as easy as that, okay? Now for some rounded leaves, I've got some right here. This would be kind of more like your eucalyptus leaves and things. Very, very, very simple, okay? Again, we're gonna use lots of paint and you're gonna use two big brush strokes essentially. So I'm gonna do kind of a C curve and then a backward C curve. So I'm gonna add some in here. I got one curve that way and then right on top of it, I'm gonna curve the other way. We have like nice little ovals, okay? And these don't need to be perfect. And you notice as I'm adding these in, you can kind of start to fill in some space. Okay, on your stems you can even add little leaves like that. Okay, now once again, rounded leaves, you're gonna kind of keep your edges round. If you want the point, you're gonna brush outward, like so. Okay, now once you have all of your leaves, you can go back in and add some little highlights. So I'm just gonna grab a little yellow and white. Right on top, you want to make sure you're kind of moving in the same direction as you had your leaves painted before. Okay, but just like that, we can add just a little bit of dimension without much work at all. I'm gonna do the same on here. Some quick little highlights. Okay, maybe I'll add another little guy up here. Okay, your leaves don't even all need to be the same kind of green. It's nice to add some variety that way. Okay, but just like that, easy peasy. Again, those are just kind of two basic leaf shapes, but it's the same idea from your petals. For both your leaves and your petals, you always want to use a nice amount of paint. You're going to press and lift, okay? So where you press, that's going to be your rounded edge, and as you lift, it's going to be your pointed edge, okay? So once again, if you want a rounded edge to your petal or a rounded edge to the bottom of your leaf, that's the edge you're brushing away from, okay? The pointed edge is what you're finishing on. Just lift off the pressure. Now, the really nice thing about flowers and leaves is they all don't need to be perfectly identical. We have lots of variety in nature. You want to have lots of variety in your paintings. So don't worry if you have some different shapes going on. It's all good. You can always go back in and tweak a little bit. It's not the end of the world. Just have some fun with it. I hope this technique gives you a little bit of time to relax. Remember, we're doing painting to go kits that you can get from our sister studio, potterybyu.com. You want to check out the to-go kits, Art to Go-Go. And in those kits, we have everything you need. We're going to give you brushes, paint, even little aprons, whatever you want. But these little technique videos are just to, supplement the instructions we're already giving you in those. It's nice to have just a little extra encouragement from our end, but we hope you guys are all staying safe. Thank you so much for joining us.